The lecture title, again, is Making God Your Reality. And the reason why we want to go at this subject is because, as many of you know, blacks in the United States of America have been brutally misguided in terms of who they are, in terms of what they are, and in terms of what they have been made. I was talking to a sister yesterday, and she brought something that we discuss routinely in the study group. Why is it that they categorize us as 3/5 of a human being? They said that we were subhuman. This is how they categorize us. But the reality is that right now we are 3/5 of a human and 2/5 of what? God. But what we want to deal with today is the making of God. The making of God. Or making God our reality. Let's get to it real quick. The first thing we do is let's define make so that we all be on the same page. I don't want us treading in different areas. Make is to bring into existence by shaping or changing material, combining parts, etc. To produce, to exist, or happen. To bring about. To put in the proper condition or states. To convert from one state or condition to another. When we say make, we're saying that we're bringing something into being. So when we say the making or making God your reality, we're saying that we're bringing God into being. Let's talk about how we do it, and let's use the Bible and the Quran as references on how we bring this about. I want to start out by saying again, both of these books, both Bible and Quran, are African history, science, and law books. Our ancestors wrote this. Dr. Issa, you're a historian. Am I right or wrong? Are these African books?
Most definitely.
In understanding that, we have to honor our ancestors by studying their writings. And by studying their writings, we need to bring precepts forward that support their writings. So when I come to you saying, making God your reality, Dr. Dodo, there's a statement that's suggesting that he's not currently our reality. Because the understanding, Kofi, of God has been totally removed from us. And we are no longer under that understanding. And this is why we have to change the way we look at it. What do we mean, God? By God, we simply mean the supreme existence of truth and righteousness. The original essence of man himself. His natural essence, his natural order. Another definition is divine energy within the universe. Some people say cosmic energy. Divine energy within the universe. Right order and laws that governs man and the universe. Another example is spirit and truth. These are definitions that we want to think about when we think about God. But the one definition that's mostly related to Christians and Muslims today is spirit. Most of them can relate to that. And the reason why this is so important is because 80% of all black people in America are what?
Christians.
Christians. So we have to speak to that issue. We cannot speak to the issue by acting like that doesn't exist. So in understanding that, spirit and truth. Now, in John 4:24, let's use this as a reference. God is a spirit. And those that worship him must worship him in spirit, in truth. Those that worship him must worship him in spirit and truth. Then if you go down to Ephesians, let me define spirit a little bit, because we talked about this about 2 weeks ago. But I want to clean it up just a little bit so that we can have the understanding based on the Bible and based on our own understanding. In the book of Ephesians 1:17, it says that the God of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of glory, may give unto you the spirit of wisdom, revelation, and the knowledge of him. Right off the bat, we can see that spirit is a what? Understanding. Spirit is knowledge. Spirit is wisdom. Spirit essentially, Dr. Dodo, is state of mind. I can have an angelic state of mind, or I can have a demonic state of mind. I have the power to decide which state I'm going to entertain. I can be demonic, or I can be godly. Which one will I choose? I have the power to decide which way to go. Look at the Quran. Here's a warning. In Surah 24:21, believers, do not follow in Satan's footsteps. Let him who follow in Satan's footsteps remember that Satan bids people to indecency and evil. Why is this so important? Because in order for us to see God and to understand the Spirit of God that dwells on the inside of us, we cannot bid ourselves to continuous indecency and evil. You will see a God, but you won't see an angelic God. You're going to see a demonic God. You're going to see an unrighteous God. And as we understand the God system, and as we look into the God system, we understand that the God system that we're trying to obtain is based upon truth and righteousness. And if you're trying to obtain the God system that's based upon truth and righteousness, you cannot entertain it through indecency and evil. Question? Okay, oh, sorry. Keep rolling. Isaiah 11. I have to paint the backdrop, okay, with the scriptures. And there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. And the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him. Let me back up for a second. I want to be very specific, okay? When our ancestors were writing these principles, they were writing them to a specific group of people. That's us. Those are the people that are from the continent of Africa, what we call Africa. Our people, right? It was for us to receive, specifically. Now, in understanding that, it even takes us back to the root of Jesse. It's saying, out of Jesse's branch shall grow a root. Watch this. And the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him. And the Spirit of wisdom, understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge, and the fear of the Lord. Back up for a second. What I'm trying to show you is that Spirit is state of mind, Spirit is understanding, Spirit is consciousness, and we possess that right. Romans 1 and 3. I'm just trying to paint the backdrop. Concerning his Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord, which was made of the seed of David according to the flesh. Let me stop for a second. First of all, we have to look at Jesus not as an individual, but what? People. As a people. Jesus is the people. It's not an individual. The Africans were not individualized thinkers. How do I know? My ancestors come from Africa. I'm African. If you have any doubt about it, those people that built the pyramids were my ancestors and your ancestors. After they built the pyramids, the descendants were taken into the United States, and we built the fine plantation houses in the South. Some of the finest architect that you want to see in the United States of America is in plantation houses. Then we built the White House. Then we built all the great bridges in the United States of America. We are the ones that implemented and implicated the monuments that are out in Washington, D.C. Wow. We did that. Now, if we were great builders in ancient Egypt, then we came to modern Egypt and we're still great builders. That means the ancestors that were in ancient Egypt are where? Here. Right here today. We are in fact our ancestors. But the understanding of that has been mostly cut off from us. And so when we talk about making God your reality, we're talking, CL, about reobtaining that understanding where God is in fact our reality, because the ancients understood that there were gods and nothing less than gods. Now, keep going. Look it down at the bottom here. It says this. David according to the flesh. That means that this guy, these people, are going to look a certain kind of way. Are y'all listening? Mm-hmm. David had two sons, right? Is that right? Mm-hmm. One of them was Solomon, right? And Solomon was what? The scripture says in Song of Solomon 1 and 5 that Solomon was what? Black. Right? Black but comely. The people that's bringing this order, family, are going to look a certain way. Right? And they're going to look just like us. Then it says, declared to be the Son of God with power. I want you to catch this to it. And declared, that means it was made known to be the Son of God with power according to the Spirit of holiness. Spirit is an understanding. So these particular people walked in an understanding that gave them power. And the power was so strong, Dr. Issa, that it allowed them to resurrect from the dead. Now, that's not a physical death, Soleil. What we're saying is that the power that was in them allowed them to come out of their death-like state of mind, their death-like condition. You possess the power, but we're not walking in accordance with the power. And because we're not walking in accordance with the power, Kofi, we have to change our thinking in order to achieve this level of understanding. But it is a must. It is something that we can no longer continue to sit idly by and allow to wither away. Watch this. And declared to be the Son of God with power according to the Spirit of holiness by the resurrection of the dead. This is what we're saying. When you used to hear our ancestors talk about the Holy Spirit, they were saying nothing but the clean spirit. What they were saying that within the Holy Spirit, Dr. Issa, is the power to change and transform all existence. It is the power to bring forth life out of death-like situations. This is the only reason why our people were able to survive the atrocities that they went through in slavery. Is because they understood that within the Spirit of holiness is a divine power that gives you greater level of understanding than anything else. And this is why they could successfully build the pyramids. And this is why they could successfully do great things on the Nile and do great things when they came into the United States of America, because they were still operating from a spiritual perspective. And this is where we have to get back to. So you say, what has to be done in order to combat this thing? We have to organize. And once we organize, we have to organize ourselves spiritually to reclaim our existence. Let me pause and put something in the middle of this thing real quick. We were talking about the Israeli army. And Brother Stewart and I were talking about, Stewart asked me, why is it that Israel is not being attacked as much as these other nations? Well, one of the reasons why Israel is not being attacked as much as these other nations, because Israel has a higher level of human intelligence than many other nations have. Israel operates, Dr. Issa, from a very ancient African system. That African system is in part what we're talking about right here today with the cities where I showed you these things were going to happen. So what happens in this African system that the Israelis use is that they have the ability to process people's energy patterns as they walk through the room. Where did we see this in ancient African history? Imhotep. And his ability to properly read the vibration of people and prescribe medicine for them based upon that. Hold up, I'm coming. In other words, when you walked towards him, he looked in your eyes, he dissected you, he analyzed you, and he was able to process your spiritual energy that was coming to him to make a determination on what worked best for you. Why is this so significant? I'm coming, Dr. Issa. Why is this so significant? Because even today, family, even today, we still have that ability. Let me give you a quick snapshot so you'll understand what I'm talking about. Many of you that was raised in the homes with your grandmother, I'm coming, brother. Many of you that was raised in the homes with your grandmother, you would bring company into your house. And the first thing your grandmother would do was process the energy that she received from the person that walked in. My grandmother would say, Tony, stay away from that boy. He's no good. Now, why would she say that? She would say that because she received the no good energy from him. She would say that because she would process the energy, and based upon processing the energy, she would convert that energy to useful information. Again, you call it digital electronics today. She would convert it to useful information. Digital electronics. And from that information, she was able to determine the condition of an individual. This is an old science, but the ancient Africans practiced it. How was Harriet able to do what she was able to do? She would read the energy patterns. How was Dr. Carter, George Washington Carter, able to do what he was able to do? How was Martin Luther King able to write like he wrote? Go ahead, brother. You had something.
No, what you're saying is true. About 4 years ago, I was in Ghana, Ghana, West Africa, and I went to see the former First Lady of Ghana, President Jerry Rawlings' wife. I went to her residence. And when I went to her residence to meet with her, they had me and a sister who I was with, I got another Ghanaian sister, go into this room. We went into this room and I felt the energy, and I knew what was going on. They were reading us. The tradition, the science is still there.
Absolutely.
There were, I don't know if this was a particular deity or what, but I felt it, and I knew what they were doing. I felt it.
Yes, sir.
You understand? I said,
yes, sir.
Oh, they're reading us.
Listen.
They're using the tradition to read us. And I asked my friend, I said, do you feel this? She said, what are you talking about, Johnny? I said, you don't even feel it. You don't feel it. It was like a laser going up and down.
Sure, absolutely.
The spirit that were reading us.
Absolutely.
To see if we were coming to harm them or anything, harm the former First Lady.
This energy in this system is so sophisticated, and we minimize it. We get bits and pieces of it, but we don't really pay much attention. So what happens, when I work for Applied Materials, Applied Materials, as many of you know, is the largest manufacturer of semiconductor equipment in the world. Okay, no big deal, right? Here's the big deal. I was reading a book called Kinsick Reading. Kinsick Reading is a book that came out in the mid-90s. And the book was based upon interpreting energy, right? Interpreting energy. And so what the book was pointing out, CL, is that every bit of energy that comes, there's information in it if we know how to digitize it, right? So what happens is that, so when information hits you, it corresponds to a signal. That signal travels to the brain, and your brain converts that. This is what gives us digital electronics, I'm telling you, right? So now here's what happens. When your grandmother would have people to come in the house, your grandmothers could discern this information because they still were walking in the African science. Although they were hundreds of years removed from Africa, they still held on to the science. I'll give you another example and I'll be quiet. I have an aunt in Roanoke Rapids. She's a medicine doctor. Whenever people sick, as we talked about before, she goes in the woods and gets herbs. But the way she gets her herbs is that she implants your sickness in her head, and as she's walking, she's guided. She's guided energy to certain plants. She takes these herbs, she mixes them up, and she prescribes them to people based upon that. Somebody had a question. Go ahead, brother. I keep going.
It's a certain way to read people too, not only about orders, but you can do it by the eye.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the left eye primarily, because it's, aligned
close to the heart. Yeah.
Yeah, and certain nerves that comes out of the eyes let you know exactly what disease is present, or if you're dehydrated. All forms, all forms. So yeah, the science is still here.
Oh, absolutely.
And alive, very alive.
When you look at Fortune 500 companies, let me name some that I've worked for personally: IBM, Intel, Applied Materials, AMD. Their top research sales guys, their top marketing team, they send them to these classes trying to develop that gift. You have it naturally and you dismiss it. And people spend millions of dollars trying to develop the spiritual science. And you naturally have it. Go ahead.
Not only that too, when you said digitize the energy, well, primarily what it is light that you're digitizing.
Yeah.
Well, in that light, the photons is information within it. And one thing I learned that I can do, I can't speak for everyone else, but I'm pretty sure other people can do it. When I be out in the sun a lot, if I'm playing ball, with all my friends and stuff, getting a lot of sun, sweating, and my shirt off and everything, and I come home and I go to sleep, I go into a deep sleep, but it's usually I am prophesizing or living in a time period that hasn't taken place, what they call deja vu. Like it's much more readily than, like, I can go there and I'm living it out much more vivid the more sun I get. And then when I be like, oh man, I remember this. Oh, I know it's about to happen now. And it's like now it's starting to get like, because I make sure every morning I go out and get a lot of sunlight.
Practice the system. Keep practicing.
Yeah, it's like, you know, I feel like that's what our bodies is doing. The only thing we're doing is trying to materialize the organic of our body, what you said, digitizing. And I think that's what our melanin do, the melanocytes that we were speaking about earlier.
It converts that sun energy.
Exactly.
Yeah, to useful information.
Yeah.
Yeah. So any other questions or comments? So we should practice this, right? So when I first talked to Toya in the back, I practiced it on Toya. And I just gave Toya her reading through the phone. I'm taking the energy in. And I was pretty accurate. Wouldn't you say, Toya? I do it with Soleil a lot, right? I do it at home. We practice these systems so that we can better develop these systems. If anybody ever come to me and ask me for a reading, I'll give it, right? That's just what it is. We all have these systems, but we need to continue to practice these systems. Remember, we're the most spiritual people on the face of the earth. Let me keep going. So the point that I want to make here, first of all, Jesus is not an individual. Get rid of that. Jesus is a people, right? Jesus represents a people, not an individual. Get rid of that. That individualized thinking is very European. And because it's European, it amounts to nothing to us, but a bunch of crap. We need to get away from the European side of thinking, pinning Jesus as an individual. Jesus represents a group of people. And that's who we are right here today. Let's keep going. And I will give unto you the eternal life and shall never perish. Neither shall any man pluck them out of my hand. We're talking specifically about a group of people. We're still coming down the line of David. My Father which gave them me is greater than all. And no man is able to pluck them out of my Father's hand. I and my Father are one. This is how we know that Jesus is really not an individual, because he's saying, I and my Father are one. Why is this so important? Because in the book of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 9, the disciples are asking Jesus how to pray. And what does Jesus say? Pray on this wise. What?
Our Father.
Our Father. Now, in the book of Acts, it lets us know that we're heirs to Christ. Right? So if it's our Father, if it's Jesus' Father, and Jesus and the Father are one, also that makes you and the Father what? One. Now that means, moderately speaking, if you and the Father are one, that means that you are also God. You are also the Father. So when we say making God your reality, you have to embrace this. If you want to elevate yourself to a higher level of consciousness and understanding, you got to come from down there.
Yes. In
your thinking. And you have to elevate yourself, transmitting yourself, accepting the fact that you're a God. Paul writes, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Yes. The scientists and psychiatrists in America are finally catching on to the concept. They did a study in 1979 that says this, that what you teach children they become. Yes. This book is written over 5,000 years ago. The science is already there. So Paul is saying, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, Jason. That means if I think like God, I'm what? God. Bottom line. So when we say making God your reality, the best way to do it, Coffee, is to change the way you think. You can't achieve godliness thinking like a damn animal. You cannot do it. The only way to achieve it is that you have to elevate your consciousness and your thinking, Stuart. And once you elevate your consciousness and your thinking, you can achieve godliness. I am not talking about Eurocentric understanding of God. I'm talking about an African-centered understanding of God that our ancestors practiced. No, I've never been to Africa, but my ancestors come from there. And nothing can deprive me of that, because what's flowing in the blood of the vein of my great-great-great-grandmother is also flowing in me. And I watched her day in and out practice high science. Did not understand it at the time, but I understand it now. Y'all all right? Now, let's look at this thing. Moses was trained in all the ways of the Egyptians. Why the Egyptians? Why not the Romans? Why not the Greeks? Why not the Russians? Why not the Chinese? Why in the hell was he trained in all the ways of the Egyptians? Because that was the best training. Let's start with that. And where is Egypt?
Africa.
The best training. Where did the Greeks go when they wanted philosophy? When they wanted math? When they wanted science? Where did they go? Africa. Where did the Romans go? Africa. They all went there because they knew that that was the center of high learning. Right? They knew that was the center of high learning. They knew it so much at the first university, Timbuktu. Right? We understood that. Now, why is this so significant? And Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians and was mighty in words and deeds. Let's back up for a second. Here's what I want to demonstrate to you real quick. The Egyptians saw themselves as what?
Gods.
Gods. I'm going to show you in the scripture. The Egyptians saw themselves as gods. Why is this important? Because you have to elevate your level of thinking, Kofi. In order for you to achieve godliness, you have to think on the line of God. And one of the best ways to get there is through truth and righteousness. Look at this right here. Watch this, Stuart. Exodus 7:1. And the Lord said unto Moses, see, I have made thee a god to Pharaoh, and Aaron thy brother shall be thy prophet. Hold up. You telling me man can be God? Of course man can be God. God made Moses a god. How did he do it? He gave him the understanding. He gave him the wisdom. He gave him the knowledge. Now watch this. Do you know that same wisdom, knowledge, and understanding is in you? The same wisdom, knowledge, and understanding is alive on the inside of you. Somebody just have to activate it for you. And once it's activated, then you will have the same power that God himself has. Otherwise, why would you be here? Otherwise, what's the purpose of him creating you? Any questions?
Yeah, I want to get that scripture, John 6:62.
No, hold on a second. Which one are you talking about?
The one you just turned from.
That's Exodus 7:1. But before that, you want Acts 7:22. What you got, brother? No, go ahead, let's get it. Let's get it. Let me warn y'all real quick. We're elevating spiritually. So you can't hold your questions. You can't hold your statements and your comments because we're elevating spiritually. What that means is that the revelation that the ancestors are providing is present. I don't know that it might come from you or Jason or Stuart or Soleil or Kofi. Please, I want to hear your question. What you got?
It says that Moses was learning all wisdoms of the Egyptians and was mighty in words
and deeds. Yeah.
Now the Egyptians, they was killing off kids.
Okay, I want to do this real quick.
Because of allegory.
Let me stop you for a second. This is very important. We can't get hung up on the name, but go ahead. I want to hear your question. Yeah.
Well, I understand the story is allegory. The
okay.
whole Bible, according to the text.
According to Galatians chapter 4, verse 6. Go ahead.
Yeah. And it says the Egyptians. Now, are they talking about Egyptians as if like an allegorical term, as if like we proclaim our bodies to be the earth? Or are they talking about the word Egyptian being something that is, for example, like, meaning the brain? I'm just using that as an example.
Okay. Well, first of all, let's look at Egypt, right? So we know it goes back to Kemet. We understand all that, land of the black. Or as Anetu says, the top land, all right? Top land, or land of the black, according to Kemet. But let's back up from that, CL. So, when we say Moses was learning all the wisdom of the Egyptians, right? Let's scratch all of that Egypt out for a second. Moses was learned in an elevated state of consciousness and thinking. Now, you say it's an allegory. Allegory means either it hasn't happened or it hasn't happened yet. Or it's a parable. This is what allegory means. So when we look at the allegorical side, this is a continuous understanding in Egyptian or African history. For example, Imhotep was trained in all the ways of the Egyptians. What that really means is Moses had high priestship. He had high priestship because high priests are the ones that obtain all the knowledge throughout our African history. It was the high priest that was vast or versed in these particular subject matters. So let's look at it from this perspective, family. We're talking about a continuous, evolving concepts. CL should be trained in all the ways of the Egyptians.
Yes.
Soleil should be trained in all the ways of the Egyptians. And this is why we come here on Sundays, so that we can get a greater understanding of our Egyptian history, for lack of a better word. You follow what I'm saying? So it's not something that was just relegated there. No. This is an African principle that has to be continuously revisited. So this book is not just limited to the Moses of that day. It's limited to the Africans who embrace these concepts. And it's not something that's individualized to Moses the individual. Because remember, Moses also represents a group of people, not just Jesus. All of the leaders in ancient African represents people. Right? And then we can go further, Stuart, by saying that we know that the individual's name wouldn't have been David, wouldn't have been Moses, and so forth and so on. They would have had African-centered names. Right? Anybody have another question or comment? Okay, let's keep rolling. So, here's what I want you to see. Moses was made a God. He was made a God. And so when we say making God your reality, what I'm telling you is that this is high-level African thinking, period. Right. You should not be thinking like carnal men and carnal women. Right. You should be thinking on the level of godliness. And this is where we have to train our kids to think on that level. Wait a minute. We have to train our kids to think on that level. This is very, very important. So Moses was trained in all the ways of the Egyptians, and the Egyptians' training led them to godliness, Kofi. This is what's important about this whole thing. The Egyptians were trained to be gods. They weren't trained to be mere men, Mike. They were trained to be elevated on a consciousness of godliness, because these things were necessary, as it is necessary right here today in the United States of America. It is time for us to start producing gods. And once we start producing gods, we'll no longer produce slaves.
Yes.
Right.
John, I'm wrapping up shortly. I want you to catch this right here. Remember, Stuart, we're talking about making God your reality. And what we're demonstrating here is that every last one of you have the ability to obtain that godliness. It is not something that's limited to one individual. It's something that all of us can obtain. There is a process. There are procedures that are put in place for you to obtain this. You've just been removed from it. Watch this. And the Bible is letting us know these things. In the book of John, chapter 6, 62 through 63. What? And if ye shall see the Son of Man ascend up where he was before. Listen at this question. What? And if ye shall see the Son of Man ascend up from where he was before. Stop thinking that the Son of Man is Jesus alone. We're talking about you being elevated to a higher state. It is the Spirit that quickeneth the flesh. The flesh profiteth nothing. The words that I speak unto you, they are spirit and they are life. The reason why I put the scripture here is because I want you to see that spirit is an understanding. And when you give somebody that understanding, you allow them to ascend to godliness. You follow me? It is the understanding that we call spirit, wisdom, knowledge, that you give an individual that elevates them and allows them to ascend. But when we say ascension, we're talking about spiritually ascending. We're not talking about a physical act. I think we all should know this. And I'm not trying to take anything away from those that can levitate. Those of you that can levitate, I'm not trying to take anything away from you. Go ahead, brother. I can't hear you.
Just fabricating.
Oh, okay. Yes, sir. Go ahead, brother.
That's my last thing on the whole.
No, brother, your question, let him come.
All right. Can you go back?
Yes, sir. Go back.
All right. Well, my understanding, and it's right on what you're saying, and just a quick comment. You said the spirit and everything. What I get from that is the quickening of the vibration. And from the voice, you are speaking vibration to the body, and it's radiating you on a higher level, which is allowing you to ascend to a higher level. And that's why I think what Moses representing was, you know, a higher level of vibration, a certain level that's coming from like you speaking to us, you're raising us up spiritually, and that spirit is higher vibration through the sound.
Now let me roll with you for a second. So word is spoken thought, right? Now every word has a different frequency, huh? So when I speak to you, the way I speak causes a reaction, right? Now I can elevate and raise my voice to fluctuate the frequency, causing a different reaction, right? So when I speak to you in words, two things should happen. The first thing that should happen is that you hear the word, you process it, and at the same time you feel the vibration and the rhythm, because your body is responding to the rhythm and to the vibration, right? This is why words are so important, and this is why a lot of times when you hear people speak or see people speak, you see hand gestures, right? Because word is not just spoken thought, word is not just vibration, but act. This is very important that we understand. Go ahead.
So is that why when Michael Jackson would perform certain poses, he would strike, and I know personally we would scream and fall out, we about to lose our mind?
Yeah. Or in some cases, of course. And so what would happen with that is that a lot of times people don't realize it. See, because word is vibration, right?
Yes.
When I speak words, I can interfere with the vibration by the movement of my hand. Right? We understand that. And it doesn't take much to alter that. Right? So in understanding that, look at this. I was in Greensboro. And when President Obama walked out, when we went to go see President Obama in Greenville, when the man walked out on the stage, people were fainting. I'm telling you, when the man walked out on the stage, get this now, get this. When the man walked out on the stage, he didn't say anything. People were fainting. His presence alone. Now watch this. See, what happens is this. So when we walk, when we talk, we move, we know that we generate a radiation or a magnetism already. We know that. That magnetism has an effect on people based on the frequency that they're already at. For example, let's say that you're at a disco, at a club. You can be on the other side of the room. A woman walks through. You don't even get a chance to fully see her, but you feel something that you haven't felt before. And what I mean by that is that you feel an energy that's so familiar that it causes you to humble yourself and go seek this woman out. Have you ever felt like that? Can any of y'all relate to that?
I get this problem all the time.
Is that you need to stop doing that. But the point being is that these are natural phenomenons that we can manipulate and alter. We can manipulate and alter energy. We see it all the time in the tech field. Lee, go give me that RF match back there. So when we look at technology, for example, in the back, the RF match is just a black box that's in a box on the top shelf. When we look at technology, for example, we can use radio frequency and different frequencies and manipulate those frequencies. I'll give you an example. My phone number is 919-225-5901, right? So Lee's phone number, for example, is 312-252-312-8025. When I dial 252-312-8025, you don't get Tony, you get Lee, right? Because the frequency is assigned to that particular number, right? Now, we can manipulate the frequency. How do you manipulate the frequency? You dial 919-225-5901, you get me. You follow what I'm saying? So frequencies can be manipulated electronically. But the concept for manipulating frequencies electronically comes from you, the human. We can manipulate our own frequency. For example, if I come in here right now and I have a smile on my face, that generally means I'm happy, right? If I have a frown on my face, that means that what? I'm sad, right? Now I can transmit that sadness to you. Or I can transmit that happy feeling to you. This is small level stuff. But watch this. I can also alter your thinking. I can also tap into your... Listen, you can say, right? You can say, Tony just talking. I've done this. And not only have I done it personally, I've done it electronically. Okay. So here's what they do in the electronic world. So in the electronic world, you have something called an RF match. This is a radio. This is very important that you understand this. And what I want you to do is open this up, son, when you in a minute. Listen at this real good. The inside of this, now I'm supposed to be teaching about the making God a reality. But this is also how you do it. Inside of this, if you take this cover off, there's something called a capacitor and an inductor. So in physics, you have something called X sub L and X sub C, right? This is the impedance capacitance and impedance inductance. So inside this box is something that varies and tunes the impedance of this box. It varies listen real good. The reason why you want to vary the impedance in this box is so that when radio signals are transferred, there's no interference. And the way that you transfer the radio frequency such that there's no interference, X sub C has to be equal to X sub L. So what you have to have is that these two have to be equal. X sub C has to be equal to X sub L. Let me minimize this for a second. I'm coming home, Kofi. I'm going to give it to you. So in understanding that, once X sub L is equal to X sub C, you have something called resonance frequency. When resonance frequency occurs, Dr. Dodo, that means that you and I are on the same frequency. That means that I can transfer information to you spiritually, and it goes directly to you, and it doesn't go to anybody else. Now, how do we know this? Because we do it all the time. Let me show you. Have you ever thought of a song, and then all of a sudden it played on the radio? Have you ever thought of Kofi, and all of a sudden he called? Have you ever thought or been in an area and felt like you had been there before? What I'm trying to show you is that all of that is related. Open this up. All of that is related to your frequency programming and your understanding of your frequency. But all of that comes through the melanin process now. Let's slow down. So here's what happens. Now, I'm teaching on making God your reality. But this is how you do it. Now, let's take melanated people. Dr. Dodo teaches, and we understand the science, that the spectrum from melanin goes from regular hertz to gamma rays. Broad, it goes beyond that. It's broad opening, right? You also teach, and we also agree as a melanin scientist, that Europeans can only get low frequency, right? That means that there are some people who don't have the ability to tap into these systems, so they have to develop tools and machines to achieve it. It is natural for you. You can alter your melanin and your frequency to line up with anybody. And once you line up with those people, you can have maximum power transmission. Let me go a little bit further. In physics, here's what happens. So if I have a match and I have a generator, all right? Stay with me for a second. All right, so if I have a match, who asked this question?
Yeah.
Okay, if I have a match, this box is called a match because it matches the impedance of the capacitance with the impedance of the inductor. That's why it's called a match. Your pineal gland is also, are y'all listening? A match. Because it alters the frequency within your body. And when it alters the frequency within your body, it causes your frequency to change and align with whatever you want it to align to. This is why Dr. George Washington Carver was able to communicate with the planets. This is why Harriet Tubman was able to communicate with star systems and energy fields. This is why my cousin that I was telling you about could go into the woods and be pulled to different plants because she altered her frequency to tap into these frequencies. And what I'm telling you, you can do the same thing. And scientifically, they figured out how to do it. They create the RF match box. And in the RF match box is a varier that changes the capacitance and the inductance to match. Now, why is that important? Let me show you. Because if you're sending a signal, right? Y'all bear with me 1 second. I'm going to finish up. If you're sending a signal right here. So let's say that this is a generator. A generator is merely something that generates radio frequency in this case. Right? Now I want the frequency, Dr. Dodo, to go right here All right? So this right here is the application. And this right here is the source. And in between the source and the application, you have something called a match. The purpose of the match is simply to make the impedance that's here, or ohms, that's here, equal. You want these to be equal. For example, right here, I would want, let's say, 10 kHz, right? And right here, I would want 10 kHz. The reason why is this. When you have the capacity, the impedance of the capacitance and inductance equal resonance frequency. You want the source to have the same frequency so that there's no resistance between the two. And when there's no resistance between the two, you don't get something called reflected power. Or some of you may call it arcing. You don't get that because there's a smooth transition that occurs. With black people in the 60s, they produced resonance frequency. I'm sorry, I get excited. They produced resonance frequency all day long. Are you following me? And producing resonance frequency, Dr. Dodo, Dr. Issa, when somebody got shot in Mississippi, a lady in Chicago was crying like it was her child. When they felt things happening with the bombings that happened in Alabama, women in North Carolina were jumping out of their sleep. These are the things that were happening because they were on the same frequency. Are you following me? And once you get on the same frequency, then I feel your pain. I feel your joy. And this is what the Native Americans practiced. And this is what the Native African used to practice, and we're still coming back into that system today. So what I'm telling you is that your system is so sophisticated, it is so advanced, that America developed science around your system. Now, why is this important? We were talking about the Israeli army. I'm going to let the cat out the bag. We're talking about the Israeli army earlier. Brother asked me, why is it that Israel has so few attacks? And I said Israel has some of the most sophisticated technology in the world. The most sophisticated air force in the world. The programmers in Israel are the most advanced programmers in the world. I'm telling you, I pulled out my old badges. I work for these companies. Applied Materials, this is me. Integrated Device Technology, this is me. K2 Associates. I don't have my Intel badges. I don't have my AMD badges. But I am telling you, Motorola, I was there. The most sophisticated programmers come from Israel. So Israel, as I told you, in the early 2000s, they built a computer chip that specifically was designed for nuclear weaponry. You can't use the average computer chip, right? And to show you that I know what I'm talking about, ancestors, can I come forward? To show you that I know what I'm talking about is this. We were talking earlier. These are computer chips. This is an older version, 90s. This is mid-2000s. There's 200 computer chips on this wafer. There's only 75 on this one. Each one of these squares is a computer chip. If you take the blueprint or the schematic for the computer chip, it will fill this whole room, and my office is 3,000 square feet. What they do is that they dice these wafers up. And every computer chip is in your watch, in your cell phone, and so forth. This is IBM technology. This is mid-90s, early 2000s. These are called wafers, but the computer chip is on silicon substrate, right? Now, where am I going with this? Here's what I want you to see. So, in Israel, Dr. Dodo, here's what happens. So, Israel has something called human energy interpreters. Here's so now they already profiled Toya. They know that most terrorists are, let's say, are from, they look Muslim or Arabic. They know that, number one. Number two, they are trained on how to receive and process energy. So as people are coming into the airport systems, Israeli sophisticated energy interpreters are throughout the airport. And when they see somebody who is spiritually or energy suspicious, they pull them aside. And they take them in a room and they interrogate them. And this is why Israel has such a low case of terrorist activity, because they're using the African systems. The ancient African systems to do these things. Why is this important? You can relate to the talking drum. You can relate to how our ancestors could manipulate things with the talking drum. You can relate to that. And the European can relate to it. That's why he banned the drum. You just don't know it like you used to. Here's what I'm showing you right here. Okay. This right here is an inductor. This is a capacitor, right? Capacitors allows AC current to pass. Inductors allows DC current to pass, right? So what happens is that there's a motor attached to each one of these. As the RF or radio frequency is coming in, these capacitors and inductors are adjusted so that they can match their impedance with each other, so you can have a smooth transition of radio frequency from the generator all the way over to the application, right? That concept is right here. But we don't practice this concept. Thank you. So what happens, Soleil, if I wanted to communicate with you, Toya, or Mike, or Kofi, or whoever, right? The first thing that I have to do is try to receive and calibrate my frequency with yours so that I can receive and interpret the signals that are coming from you. This is how the system works. And for us that are melanated, we have a broader range, a broader scope. So not only can we communicate with humans, don't take this the wrong way, we can communicate with animals. We can communicate with insects. We can communicate with all these things. We just don't practice these systems. We've gotten so far withdrawn from. Stuart, you had something.
Well, no, I was just going to add on that when the brother was talking about the frequencies,
yeah.
And it enacts our melanin. That's why they took us away from the way we used to pronounce words and we speak English. Mm-hmm. Because certain languages automatically, when you speak them, it enacts the melanin and it starts the melanin, certain vowels and sounds. So as you were talking about the drum, they took the drum away. I just was adding on. And something else I wanted to say is that when you're talking about the computers, they have Edward Tyson, the top physicist, I can't think of his name right now. Yeah, he done a lecture where he compares our brain to computers. Mm-hmm. And he talks about how the computers based on our brain. And just the same thing when you're talking about there.
But this is the supercomputer right here. So yeah. You're right on point, right? And even when in languages, different African language, different Asian language, the levels of word that you use mean different things. So I can have the word run, for example. If I say run like that, it means one thing. If I say run, it means run. It means different things. It's the same word. How I pronounce it, it means different things because it's a different vibration that's given to that word, right? So now let's keep rolling real quick. Here's what I want you to see. Thank you, Lee. I appreciate it. Here's what I want you to see. In John 6:62 through 63, this is very important. What and if ye shall see the Son of Man ascend up where he was before. You have to ascend where you were before. Watch this. If it is spirit that quickeneth. But the way you ascend, Kofi, is by changing your understanding through spirit. The flesh profiteth nothing. This means nothing. The words that I speak unto you, they are spirit and they are life. Amen. So the way we ascend is through spiritual understanding coming to us through the form of words, giving us understanding and knowledge on a particular subject matter. And this is why Moses was made a god over Pharaoh, because he received a higher understanding than what Pharaoh had, which gave him authority over Pharaoh. And I am saying that we're in the day of ascension, where we're going to become gods again as we were in the past. But you have to allow this to come into you. You cannot hold it back. You have to allow it to come. The ancestors are pleading and begging with us to take our position as God. Stop thinking like mortal men. Stop it. Start thinking like God. And you will produce the results that God's produced. I'm almost finished. This is the Quran again. And watch this. And the example of Mary, the daughter of Imran, who guarded her chastity. So we blew into her garment through our angel, and she believed in the words of her Lord and his scriptures and was devoutly obedient. What are we saying? Jesus, the individual, was in the womb of Mary. But the angels blew understanding into Jesus through Mary. In other words, they talked, according to the Quran, they talked to Mary and gave her understanding, and this understanding was absorbed while Jesus was in the womb. Spiritual. This is what happened. When we say angel, we're not talking no spooktified stuff. We're talking about men and women, bro, that were talking and gave this information. Why is this so significant? Because angels are people who have this information. We have to stop thinking down the low line when we think of angels and when we think of gods. Any questions? Jason, what you got? You all right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Go ahead. You got something?
No, I was just, when you said back in the day that everybody was on the same frequency,
yeah.
and something bad happened, I'm just thinking like that's why they're making everything so computerized for kids now, so they can take them off. If something happens, people see stuff now, they're like, oh, it happened to them.
Yeah.
But they're so busy on computers and so busy doing stuff, we're not on the same frequency no more. You know what I'm saying? We're so busy on our phones, and back in the day, it was no time for nobody to be on their phone.
Man, we had no choice.
Had no, so when something happened, oh, it's going to happen to us soon.
Yeah,
that's right. If it was 3 states away, oh, it's going to have to happen here too. So we got to do something about it. But now everybody's so busy, and they're making new toys now for kids. Distractions. That's basically what I'm saying.
Somebody was going to say something before you go.
I just want to comment that.
Please.
You just saw this, this is wonderful. I mean, you are doing wonderful teaching.
Thank you. Thank you, brother. Yes, sir.
And anything that is material, meaning that, transforming the energies through all this kind of thing, is still low par rapport compared to the natural one, meaning that
that we
can
do much better than that.
Yeah, we can do much better than that.
Yes.
So the point is, yes, we are in the society that we, who are supposed to be the highest, okay, we are now somewhere that we are claiming, that we have, that is still there. Of course, I think it's through maybe teaching, and we have lost that.
Yeah.
We have lost that because of adopting, a new way of being taught.
That's right. That's right.
So the point is to regain that one. We have to go. For me, the way I'm thinking, we have to go to the source.
Absolutely. To
the source, because this is back home over there. Not everybody can be, the head of family or head of the community. You have to go through teaching.
Absolutely.
You have to go through teaching, heavy teaching.
Yes.
And this teaching is totally, very powerful in such a way that when you come from that, you are evolved. So these are these teaching that I think if we have to regain our power, we have to go through. We have to go through. Now, how we need to figure out. We need to figure out to get into this kind of teaching. Because as long as we'll be into this European teaching system, well, we'll have lose everything. We can go nowhere.
Absolutely.
Nowhere.
Yeah. Let me show you how Jesus took what you're saying. What you're saying is right on time. Watch this. In the book of Matthew, chapter 10, verse 5 through 8. These 12 Jesus sent forward and commanded them, saying, go not into the way of the Gentiles, and into any city of the Samaritans enter ye not, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. You just said it. We're lost. We don't know anymore. Right? So a savior in the form of what we call Jesus came 2,000 years ago, according to the history, to redeem people. Now, watch what happened. When he came, look at what he did. He said, and as you go, preach, saying the kingdom of God is at hand, heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, cast out devils, ye have received freely you give. What is Jesus telling us? He taught the 12 disciples, Kofi. He went around teaching people how to do these things. So we're confirming today that this is a teaching that we have to go back to. And we have to, I agree, we need to go to the source so we get the full understanding, Dr. Issa, of the teachings. But Jesus was practicing ancient African science. This is what he was doing. But he had mastered it so well, Dr. Dodo, that he could teach other people, CL. And this is why this is so important. How do you learn how to heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead? These are now we're not talking about physically dead in this case. We're talking about people who are spiritually dead. And Jesus could go and speak to them and give them life. This is what has to happen with our people. What this book is letting us know is that we possess these powers. And we need to start moving out based upon these powers. We can no longer continue to sit idle as if we don't possess it. We got to walk into that understanding. All of us, not one of us, all of us possess it. But we have to start activating it. What you got, brother?
Yeah, the 12 that Jesus sent forth, or the 12 cranial nerves.
Okay, I mean, I can get with that.
Yeah, because
we rock with that.
You know what I mean? Because Israel is here, and you gotta find that lost city, which is in here. And once you're speaking from righteousness, like we were just speaking about the frequencies and stuff. That's the impedance that we're trying to apply to that person we're trying to heal. So once you're good up here and you find that holy city, the city of peace, then that's when
Jerusalem.
Yep. And because you notice the whole brain function itself. You know, I just like it ain't just only one thing. It's everything. The hypothalamus, the pituitary.
So what we've been learning is pretty much metaphorically speaking for the brain.
Yeah, I mean, the Bible, like Brother Rick said, that the Bible is science, history, and it's psychology as well on the human brain development and the body. And he's hitting it every time. Like every scripture he's pulling up is in conjunction with each one of them. That's why I ain't gonna say that. That's why I'm just sitting.
No, I want you to say something.
Because, like, you know what I mean? Like the statements, it can wait.
I want you to say something. I don't want. Today we can't afford to miss anything.
Yes.
And if we believe in the influence of the ancestors, like I said earlier, you may be Imhotep.
Yes.
You know, this brother here, Dr. Isha, could be Thutmose. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we gotta bring, yes sir. So we can't sit idle. So let me tell you what our problem is. 2 Timothy 3:5 says, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. You deny the power of God. And this is why we haven't been able to make God our reality, Toya, is because we keep denying God's power. God is trying to elevate us, spiritually elevate us. But every time we deny it, you told me, brother, you and Dr. Dodo said, even at your wedding, you wanted to do some traditional African things, and your family didn't want you to. Denying the power thereof. There's power in these things, right? So we got to stop denying them. We do the same thing here in the United States of America as black people. What we do is that we switch our ways over to the European, not really acknowledging and recognizing. For a long time, Brother Kofi and Dr. Dodo, for a long time in this country, if you see a black person and you ask them if they were black, you know what they would say? No, I'm Indian.
Oh, yeah.
Because Indians had straighter hair. And Indians were closer to whites in their mind, not understanding that the Indians came from Africa. You follow what I'm saying? We were denying our natural existence. And we continue to be that way. And we have to get away from that. The scripture says you have a form of godliness, but you keep denying the power. And I am telling you, denial is betrayal.
Amen.
You're betraying yourself. You're betraying your ancestors by denying the mere fact that you are in fact God. As hard as that is for you to embrace and accept, you have to accept it. You have to accept the fact that you're God. If you accept anything less than that, you're committing treason and betrayal on yourself. And this is what we have to get away from. Let me finish up. I got 2 more slides. Look at this. Luke, real quick. Again, I want to show you Luke 9 and 9. 9 and 1. Then he called his 12 disciples together and gave them power and authority over devils and all diseases. There's nothing outside of us that has greater power that's on the inside of us. There's nothing that you can't accomplish. Absolutely nothing. Yep. Absolutely nothing that you cannot accomplish. The problem is that we keep denying the power of God that's on the inside of us. And that's what we have to get away from. So when we talk about making God your reality, the first thing you have to do is stop denying it. And then you have to accept the fact that you come from people that were in fact gods. If Jesus is saying me and my Father are one, look at what he did. He started teaching the disciples the same thing that the Father taught him. The powers that we possess. And he sent them to preach the kingdom and God to heal the sick. Okay, no problem. Let me get through this because I know we got to go. Mark, real quick, 6:2-9. 6:2.
Oh, you already picked it out.
2-9.
That was a nice one.
And when the Sabbath day was come, he began to teach in the synagogue. What I want you to understand is that what you call Jesus is just like Osiris and Haru in the Book of the Dead. They were going around teaching. Jesus was going around teaching. This is what Africans do. When they learn things, they don't hoard it. They don't individualize it. They understand that the ancestors gave it to them. The universe gave it to them. So they have an obligation to give it back by giving it to the people. And this is what we have to go back to. Are you all following me? Let me wrap up real quick. Many hearing him were astonished, saying, from whence did this man come? They're questioning him. How the heck does he have all this understanding? Isn't he the carpenter's son? They're questioning the same thing now. How are these blacks evolving? The most educated group in America. The most educated group in America are black women. According to the 2014 report, the most educated group in America are black women. How? We put all of these obstacles before them. How could they rise above it? We put all of these entrapment things before them. We made it difficult for them to go to school, and they still rose above it. Look at this right here. Many astonished. Many are astonished. How can we have peanut scientists in here that have taken the peanut to higher levels? How can we have that? Yes. How can we have these things? Right? We put too many difficult things before them in order for that to happen. They're not denying the power of God. Yes. Why isn't my brother Dr. Issa in jail? He's not denying the power of God. We understand that they tried to destroy our good brother. But our brother understands that greater power is in him than that or he that is in the world. This is very important that we come into this understanding. They're trying to entrap our children. Our children have to be taught the same thing. And if we don't teach our children these things, then it's us that are responsible, not our children. Let me keep rolling. Look, I'm finishing up. From whence have this man these things? Listen at it. And what wisdom is this which is given unto him? This is very important, family. Please understand this. What wisdom which is given unto him that even such mighty works are wrought by his hands? Is not this the carpenter's son? In other words, this low-level thinker, this idiot, should not know these things. You are in a day, black people, where the Spirit of God is hovering over you. And you're getting ready to shock the entire world with what you're going to bring forward. I receive it. You don't know right this minute, but it's going to happen within the twinkling of an eye. What is that eye, brother? Third eye. The third eye. The third eye is going to twinkle in the book of Corinthians, 1 Corinthians, chapter 15, starting at the 52nd through the 54th verse. Go read it. This is going to happen within a twinkling of an eye. In other words, Dr. Dodo, the God organ, come on somebody, the God organ, the pineal gland is going to break free for us and reveal things to us that Osiris represented. Isn't he represented by the pineal gland? This is very important that we understand this. This is going to happen within the twinkling of an eye. And we are in the season where the eye is twinkling. How do we know? How do we know? Because Trump is on the scene. Okay, y'all missed that lecture. y'all missed that lecture, so I ain't going to deal with it. Okay, so let's keep going. All right, let me just go through this thing. But Jesus said unto them, a prophet is not without honor, but in his own country. In other words, his own people did not receive him when he was going around teaching. And we see black people not receiving each other today for the same reasons, but we got to get out of this. Let me hurry up. And he marveled because of their unbelief and went around about the villages teaching. All this knowledge and wisdom that Jesus had, he continued to teach. Now, why am I calling this the making of God? Making God the reality. Because what Jesus did is he went around teaching people that very concept. Synagogues, villages, teaching people that the power of God is within. You own that power of God. The only thing you have to do is acknowledge and recognize it. And once you recognize it and acknowledge it, it will naturally grow inside of you. And once it grows on the inside of you, you continue to cultivate it. And the more people you teach this to, the greater your wisdom becomes. Because you are no longer denying the power of God. Now, when you have it and you're not teaching it, you're also denying it. Any questions? We got 2 more slides. Any questions? Come on, family. This right here is serious, all right? Here we go. Y'all bear with me on this right here. You ready? Here we go, right here. Let's go. Y'all ready? Where does all of this come from? In the book of John, chapter 1, chapter 10, verse 30. I and my Father are one. Then the Jews took up stones again to stone him. Jesus answered them, many good works have I showed you from my Father. For which one of those works do you stone me for? The Jews are saying, we're not stoning you because of your good works. But we're stoning you because you call yourself God. That's why they wanted to stone him. Now watch Jesus, Dr. Dodo. The Jews answered him, saying, for a good work we stone thee not, but blasphemy. And because thou being a man, maketh thyself God. Now remember, the lecture title is Making God Your Reality.
Amen.
And see, what has happened is that you haven't been making God your reality. And this is why your community is in the condition that it's in today, because you have not made God your reality. Watch this, black man, black woman. Jesus answered them, is it not written in your law? I said, ye are gods.
Yes.
This is African law.
Amen.
That ye are gods. Yes. Now, if it's African law that ye are gods, what is your problem? You have been denying the power of God. And this is what your problem is. You have to stop denying the power of God. If he called them gods unto whom the word of God came, then the scriptures cannot be broken. In other words, it's law. What is a law? A governing policy. You are governed by that. It was a part of your governance that you accept this. If you didn't, you were committing blasphemy. Watch this. If he called them gods unto whom the word of God came, then the scripture, Jason, cannot be broken. Right? It cannot be broken. Say ye of him whom the Father hath sanctified and sent into the world, thou blasphemest, because I said I'm the Son of God? If I do not the works of my Father, believe me not. Now the Africans bore witness to the work of the Father. Look at what they created. They created a civilization that still has higher level of advanced technology than any civilization that we've seen. 2,500, 3,000 years ago, they were smelting metals. They were able to reach temperatures over 2,500 degrees C. And it wasn't until the late 1800s that America could reach these temperatures. How did they do it? Because they did not deny their godship. They were so advanced with science and medicine because they did not deny their godship. And the only reason why you're not as advanced is because you're denying your godship.
Amen.
Stop denying your godship. But if I do, though ye believe not me, believe the works that ye may know, and believe that the Father is in me and I am in him. Give me Psalms 82 and 6. The Father is in me and I am in him. What are we saying?
I am one with the Father.
I am one with the Father. That means you have the ability to control things in the universe. Let me show you how I know real quick and I'll be quiet. Every time before it rained, my grandmother would say, my elbow is aching. Every time before it snowed, my uncle would say, my hip bothered me. It's going to snow in 2 days. I'm talking to you. Look, my auntie would say, I got a sharp pain up my back. Sharp pain up my back. Thunderstorms are coming. Y'all ain't listening.
Yes.
What I'm trying to tell you is you're one with the universe. That's who you are. But you've been taken away from that. And we have to find a way to go back home, family. When I say go back home, I'm talking about going to the proper understanding of God. We got to go back there. You got Psalms 82 and 6? Now, watch this. Now, look at this right here. Jesus answered him, is it not written in your law? I said, ye are gods. Read 82 and 6 loud, son.
I have said, you are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High.
Okay, now, Dr. Issa agreed that this was an African book. These are African principles. Nobody would deny that. Now, if these are African principles, why aren't we embracing them?
We don't know no better.
We have to start knowing better. We have to start embracing these concepts. And by the way, Dr. Issa, the Juju man in Africa, he may not have written these concepts, but he practiced them. He understands them. We may articulate them a little bit different, but they're the same. And the reason why we notice they're the same is because we come from the same source. I am no different from you and you and you and you. I'm no different from you. I may talk a little bit different. Our upbringing may be a little bit different. But the fact of the matter is we go back to the same seed. This is a fact. When I look at you, I see my cousins. I see my aunts. I see my nephews. I see my sister. I see all of that in you. Because we're one and the same. Read that law one more time, brother.
I have said, ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High.
Okay. Last one. We'll finish up. Hosea 11 and 1. When Israel was a child, I love him. I told you, Israel, Egypt, Jesus, Moses, they're people. And called my son out of Egypt. Now, watch this. And behold, the glory of the Lord of God of Israel came from the way of the east. Where's Africa from here? East. And his voice was like noise of many waters, and the earth shined with his glory. The sun is coming from the east. Watch this. And the glory of the Lord came into the house by the way of the gate, whose prospect is toward the east. Why is this important? Because we came from the east. I'll shut it down right here. Right here. Number 6. And I heard him speaking unto me out of the house. And the man stood by me. And he said unto me, Son of man, the place of my throne and the place of soles of my feet, where I will dwell is in the midst of the children of Israel. Let's get rid of that word because it confuses people. Black people are what you call the children of Israel in this case. Let's get rid of that word. Let's say Africans for now, right? Let's say that because we can identify with that. Now, look at this. I will dwell in the midst of the children of Israel forever. And my holy name shall the house of Israel no more defile. No more shall you defile it. Now, defilation is not simply just saying that you don't understand God's presence, but you're denying God's presence. That's defiling God. You're defiling the Spirit every single time you deny it. Now, let me finish up. Neither they nor their kings by their whoredom, nor by the carcasses of their kings in their high places. All right, let me summarize real quick. What did I try to show you today? That the making or the making of making God your reality is something that you decide. You have the power to make God your reality. Jesus made God his reality. You have the power to make God your reality. There are systems that the ancient Africans put in place to make these things happen. And we have to start going back to those systems, but they must be grounded in truth and righteousness. This is very important that we ground our way in that truth and righteousness, because when we do that, we open up the spiritual portals where there's no impedance between us and God. So X sub C and X sub L become equal. And we allow the smooth transmission of the God of righteousness to come into our being. But once we start doing things to defile our temple, we deny that God from coming. You put resistance into place. And once you put resistance into place, you create reflected power, you create arcing, which is what we want to get away from. That's why we put that tuning box in place, the RF match box, so that we can tune ourselves to receive the Spirit of God. Any questions? I'll stop at that. Any questions, any comments, anything anybody want to add?
Now, this kind of teaching, I think...
Can you say it loud so we can hear you?
Yeah, this kind of teaching, because I think I asked this question once. This kind of teaching that we are doing, even the same that is being done in the churches.
It's not what?
It is the same kind of teaching
Okay.
that we are doing in the churches, in the black churches. Is that the same? I mean, the same type of information.
Yeah.
Is that the same?
Same if no. The churches don't teach it like they don't teach it like
so
this.
my question is, how can you bring this true teaching to these churches?
Okay, let me share this with you. Why don't you start joining us more often?
No problem.
I'm asking you why.
Why don't
Yeah, why don't you come more Sundays? You come every now and then, but why don't you come more Sundays?
Well, first of all, that's the question.
Yeah, I mean, if you're serious, right? I'm asking you if you told me today that this is good teaching.
Yeah.
Did you say that?
Oh yeah.
Now, and this is very important coming from a geneticist.
Yeah.
If the teachings are good, why aren't you here more Sundays?
No, because no.
Do you need a ride here?
No.
Do you need me to pick you up?
No.
Do you need me to send Dr. Dodo to West Africa for a few weeks? I mean, what do you need?
What I'm saying, for me, I don't want. For me,
What I'm trying to show you is that you're acting like the preacher. I'm trying to show you why the preachers don't allow us to come into their church.
I don't allow.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're afraid of the teachings. But my question to you, listen at what you just said. You said the teachings are good, great teachings.
Yeah.